Hey guys, it is January 7th, 2021, lesson 68 in A Course in Miracles student workbook, Love Holds No Grievances. So I wanted to start out with the beginning excerpt of the lesson, which says that to hold a grievance is to forget who you are. To hold a grievance is to see yourself as the body. To hold a grievance is to let go, let the ego rule you or mind, and to condemn the body to death. Perhaps you do not fully realize just what holding grievances does to your mind. It seems to split you off from your source and make you unlike him. It makes you believe that he is like what you think you have become, for no one can conceive of this creator as unlike himself. So, if you saw yesterday's video, we talked about language and how language can get as close to truth, but it can't describe truth because the only way we know truth is by experiencing it. So, most oftentimes, we listen to the wrong voice, right? The wrong mother, the mother with Munchausen syndrome, rather than unconditional loving mother. And because we're fed this illness, then we start to believe that we're alone, that we're unlovable, etc. So the more that we love, the less we think, because thinking covers our being. Okay? Again, it's only so much that the mind can conceive and perceive within the world because of our senses, and it's not possible for it to know what is beyond it without going beyond it. So happiness, if you understand the feeling of it, is feeling of the real inner self, right? Continuous happiness is what our goal is, without any sorrow whatsoever. So we have to let go of the concepts of limitations that we have adopted, right? Truth is that which never changes, and if you do any kind of psychedelic, you kind of see what I mean, especially if you do DMT, because if you hold on, it's going to be a very miserable time. The more you relax and let go, the more you're allowed to see what is ever-present, omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent. So when we adopt the idea that we're individual separates from the all, as we see in the Western culture right now, we are identifying with labels and idols. And we use the mind, right, as a tool, but as we identify ourselves with the mind, it can only reflect so much of how much we allow ourselves to be, right? So as much as you know yourself, it's reflected out in the world. So wherever you go, there you are. And it's not something that we grow into, it's something that we let go. So we have this purification, this reincarnation of the burning of everything that is not us. So when we are looking at making the unconscious conscious, right, we see things as they come up and then we let them go. The other way that we allow ourselves to know ourselves is to be quiet and have self-inquisition, which is the idea of who I am, what am I doing in this life, what is my purpose, right? Most oftentimes we won't allow ourselves to be shown what truth is until we're actually been beaten by the world. So until we suffer so much that we have no other choice but to surrender, okay? And you choose to want this, and you see within yourself that you're happier. And once you start feeling happy, then you understand that this is it. There's no top limit to joy, and you want to establish the natural state. And no matter how much you try to get away from it, you'll be back on the path, right, to reestablish that harmony. So everything is harmonious. God is harmony. And there is no effort, okay? So we're starting to understand that life happens for us and not to us. And once we start to see God in everything and everyone and everywhere, then we allow ourselves to understand the universal principles of vibration, rhythm, correspondence, gender, etc. Because we're allowing and accepting and allowing God to arrange things to get the little self out of the way, right? And now we're concentrating our thoughts, because our thoughts are the things that are manifesting, okay? And you can learn about this in Personal Magnetism by Thurmond D. Dumont, okay? thoughts are energy, and they travel faster than any kind of vibration or wave in the world. Okay? So, when we have a concentrated mind, it keeps extraneous thought out. So, a lot of this chit chat that we have, 80% of our thoughts that aren't ours, we allow ourselves to focus on the 20%, which give us the 80% that we need in terms of return of investment. And we start to experience joy, right? So at first, it starts becoming an exciting joy where we're excited, we're loving, we're giving, and then it becomes an exuberant joy where it starts to swell up, right, within ourselves. It's almost like you can't contain it. You just want to laugh, and it's so much energy within yourself, it's almost like your body can't contain it. And it's because your central nervous system is not used to it. So we'll swell up, and it might get annoying, but it's not, because it's almost like tickling, right? It's just like it's too much for you. Then we have peace, okay? And they say this in the Bible, which is peace passeth all understanding, right? So a lot of these states aren't describable because it's not often experienced. As we learned about language once again, we can't understand what people describe as the experience because the words can't really depict what it is. So when we start this journey, it starts out as thoughts, right? So thought this, thought that, you're thinking. Then you start getting in the thoughts and feeling, right? So you start coordinating things within your mind and your feelings. You're like, okay, this is what I'm feeling, and this is what I think when I'm feeling this. And then you start getting to a point that you're feeling, right? And then you start to understand that your feelings are also just feelings, and they also pass by as well. And this also is very difficult for individuals that are highly sensitive, empaths, because we identify so much with our feelings. Okay? So once we get to the feelingness, then we get to the beingness. So thoughts, feelings, beingness. Okay? Because basically, once again, we are trying to reestablish this feeling of joy and happiness, and everyone is seeking itself in every act, right? So whatever you put out there is going to reciprocate, just like the law of attraction. Now, when we look back at grievances, right, you are allowing yourself to let go of what you hold to think and hold to be true and love, to be shown what you know is truth and love. So the grievances of others is very difficult, especially if you're an empath or someone that's highly sensitive, because the grievances is basically allowing yourself to let them go as if they already died. So dying before you die is basically allowing yourself to let go of the things that you are attached to in this world. Okay, so we may not find this is possible because of the motivation, because we feel like it's not loving, that once we feel these grievances, that we fall back in the shame and guilt. Okay, and that's what makes it very difficult, because we fall in the same pattern, but we are now rising ourselves from shame and guilt to apathy, to grief and fear, and there's nothing to fear. So once we feel these grievances, we understand that if we can let go once, we can let go again, and we can do it a second time, a fourth time, an eighth time, 16th time, 64th time. Why? Because as something is let go, it ceases to exist in the old way. It doesn't exist anymore. Okay? And once we see this is possible, we allow ourselves to see what's possible within letting go of ourselves and our own life, as we start to see what is real. So when we are looking at adopting this lovingness towards ourselves, you want to repeat this as you're doing the lesson. I would see you as my friend, that I remember you are a part of me, and come to know myself. Love holds no grievances. When I let my grievances go, I will know I am in a perfectly safe. Why is this important? Because the only way that we can allow ourselves to let go, right, especially when it comes to grief, is by feeling safe. We create this blanket within ourselves, and as we allow ourselves to create this blanket, then we can let go of even trauma from our past, childhood wounds, adolescence, and even adulthood. Because until we feel safe, then we won't allow ourselves to let go and surrender to what is the will of God. And as we are trying to do within ourselves and the outside world, we are trying to let go and let God. Okay? Allowing God to arrange everything for ourselves, because we see God in everything, everyone, everywhere. And there's no effort because everything is perfectly in line where it's supposed to be. And as we allow ourselves to become the vessel, then we start to see what we are actually made of.